my mind.
Good, but you're a wise person, so.
We are in an era of awakening. Have been for probably the last 10 years, and when you're in an era of awakening, that awakening starts increasing. So each year, more people get awake, or people get more awake with things. It's people equate it to the concept of the Matrix, where we're all living in this created reality, this created world that is created for us. And some people wake up from that early and are able to step out of it and look at everything that's going on and go, ooh, it's a lie. It's not real. Now there are people who literally believe we're living in a matrix, but that's a separate thing, separate discussion, because there is some truth to that. And then others who just use it as, a comparison to when you're living so deep in created society, which we create society, mankind creates society. And when we've gone through so many eras and so many decades of the same kind of people have been in power in society, norms, societal norms, family norms, relationship norms have been dictated for us by people hundreds of years ago.
Right.
And then
sexism and all that.
Yeah, and then a new generation of people who grew up being told that is right, adopted it as right, and then continued to press it, but pressed it even harder because it was normal for them. So now it's become normalized, and it only took 2 generations. Well, then you're gonna have a generation that takes it further and adds to it, adds more anger, adds more hate to it. Now what was normalized has anger that's normalized. Hate is normalized. Bam, racism. Bam, homophobia. Bam, sexism now is a thing. It's not an idea and a concept. It's not someone's personal vendetta and hate towards people. Now it's normal because 2 generations grew up in it. Well, the more generations that happens, it spirals out of control. And the matrix that we are living in now is so thickly woven with so many layers that it's hard for people to wake up. It's hard for people to step back. It's even harder for people to step back now. And
because it's easier to stay in the shell because they're
ashamed
or embarrassed.
Because it's easy. And because so many of these things are normal in society and normalized in society, supported by society, that kind of stuff. It's scarier to wake up because you will be alone. You will be the small population. You will be hated. You will be attacked. You will, anger will be pointed towards you now, that kind of stuff, whatever. When a large population of an entire generation starts to wake up at the same time, which is what has happened in the last 10, 15 years. And it started with my generation. We woke up. A lot of us woke up.
The 80s and 90s? Oh, yeah.
A lot of us woke up and started seeing through the cracks, seeing through the bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And calling out the bullshit. And because our generation started to wake up, the generation we started to raise, or that was directly after us, was going to learn from us, learned in a more awakened state. So the same kind of thing that happened with the racism, sexism, all that kind of stuff, that the next generation was worse because it was normalized, the same thing happened with the generation after us. It was more normalized. There's a flip side that can come with that, though, that because of the era that these awakenings kind of started happening, the generation after us was born into social media, born into the internet and everything else. The internet was fresh with my generation, so it was just starting. Social media didn't exist yet, That's how fresh social media is. I'm 35. I'm not old at all, but it didn't exist.
You look like a 70-year-old.
But it didn't exist for me. I remember no social media existing.
I remember it.
You remember it. It is fresh.
Yeah.
So the generation directly after me, which is more your generation,
Yes.
was that kind of born into more awakened households and awakened people around you. And then the generation directly after you, which are the teenagers now,
Oh yeah.
are even more awake. But they're awake in a fully submerged social media world, which is loud, it is angry, it allows people to say exactly what they're feeling at any given moment in time without pausing, without thinking about what they're saying. They can just put it out there, and that energy goes out into the universe and into our societies with no filter and no control. That's that dangerous side of social media. So as soon as someone who is more awake and at least sees the issues in society, but has no compassion tied to their words, compassion tied to their awakenedness, they're going to speak out loud constantly without stopping themselves or pausing or caring who hears. And there's going to be anger, there's going to be, it's not tempered. When you wake up from something, first you have to pause. You know, it's like when you have a nightmare, horrible nightmare, seems super real, like the kind where your family is butchered horribly or something really terrible happens or you know, whatever it is, a realistic nightmare. There's no fantasy to it, it's real. And you wake up from it and you're crying, you're shaking, you're terrified, you're whatever. You're not going to immediately go onto social media or Facebook and say, oh my God, my family has cancer.
No.
First, you have to pause. You have to let your mind catch up. You have to let your heart catch up, your spirit catch up and go, it was a dream. It was a dream. What happened was not reality. My feelings towards what happened, what I'm feeling right now, the energy, the fear, the anger, that's real. Because that's how I would react if that were to happen in real life. We have to do the same thing when we finally get to a place in life where we realize the issues and the holes and the fakeness of our society and culture and all of that. You have to pause first. You have to pause.
Right.
You have to stop, be silent, let your brain catch up, let your heart catch up, let your spirit catch up. And then you need to go research until you find what you think is actually true before you speak on anything. Because you're now going to speak like you do out of a nightmare, purely out of emotion.
Impulsive.
Purely impulsive and out of emotion. With no control, no filter, no temperance to it. Then once you go and you start seeking out truth, you start talking to people, you start talking to, you know, if you're a Hispanic person who grew up and your family is racist towards white people, Asian people, black people, blah, blah, blah. And you have a moment where you finally wake up and go, this doesn't feel right, this is wrong.
Okay.
You start talking to people of those cultures. You start diving into those cultures. You start diving into the very things that your family said were terrible about those cultures. Well, I'm going to go research that now.
Right.
You know, all black people are thugs and all, you know, blah, 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 and do drugs and drug dealers and da, 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 da. That person now needs to step out and go do research.
Right.
Go dive into the culture and the society. Let's find out what's true. Before they just start blasting their family angrily.
Right.
And people like them and generalizing the entire Hispanic community. Because the entire Hispanic community does not think that. Just like the entire black community does not think ill of white people or Asian people or whatever. The entire white community does not think ill of the black community, Asian community, Hispanic community, indigenous communities. What we see is not the majority. It's the loudest.
Yes.
That's how society works. The loudest, the most arrogant, the ones who really think they're right are the ones who are in power, who are the ones that have podcasts, who are the ones who are on news, are the ones who are in political positions. It's not the majority. It's the loudest.
Right.
You know, it's just like generalizing Christians. It's
Oh, yeah.
not the majority.
Okay.
It's the loudest.
Right.
And so you cannot generalize an entire group of people off of the loudest. You're going to miss out on a lot of things. Part of awakening is that realization. And that's a realization most people miss. Because again, they're just acting out of emotion, impulsiveness, their anger, justified anger. You are justified to be angry when you start seeing the cruelness and the inconsistencies in our own society.
But you gotta utilize that fear in a positive and mature
Yeah,
way.
yes, you have to temper it with maturity and compassion. I say it all the time.
Very much.
The one thing people are missing in this day and age is compassion.
Absolutely.
If more people would try to temper their life, their behavior, their reactions, their interactions, their words, their posts, their whatever with compassion, what wouldn't that fix?
Right.
Literally, what wouldn't that fix? Everyone is always looking for what's the actual answer to fighting, you know, the racism that's in the world and in America, or the sexism, or the hate for gay people, trans people, all that kind of stuff for indigenous people. It's because there's zero compassion.
Right.
Compassion is what we're missing. If a society were built on compassion,
Holy crap. So much would be done.
so much would be done. So much would be fixed. Every time we went to talk about a new law, someone would pause the room and go, let's talk about the compassionate side of this. What are we missing?
Right.
Are we speaking compassion about these people right now?
Or are we talking out of fear?
Exactly. Or anger.
Or,
Or whatever latent things we're holding on to from societal norms. You know, are we being compassionate towards women in all of the things that we're talking about right now in government and blah, 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 and the laws that we're passing? No, there's no compassion to be seen, to be heard.
right.
Yeah, there's no compassion from Democrats to Republicans, Republicans to Democrats. There's no
Right.
compassion. Everything is about your side, my side, your hate, my hate. I hate you, you hate me, blah, blah, blah. You hated me first, so I'm justified to hate you. No. Because if you had compassion, you would go, you can hate me. That's fine. That's your choice.
That's why I feel like I'm like me and my brother. I don't know about you because I don't know. I don't think I've asked. But we because some people are like, what group are you? And I'm like, I'm not choosing a side here. There's so many positive and pros and cons on both sides, on various sides.
Yes.
I can't choose a side.
No. Absolutely. But we're a side-centric culture. You have to pick a side.
It's ridiculous.
You
know, here that's a little random. Here's the thing. I had a little. This is the thing I noticed. You know, okay. Now this is like back to where communication and compromise. I had that actually same situation earlier. What happened was I've been noticing for years, but finally I'm vocalizing a little more towards small aspects of people because I don't know yet. Because I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I went to my mom and I said, "Hey, Mom, when Frozen came out, the big thing, great. Everyone loves Elsa. Then their makeup tutorial things." Where they took away her makeup, and some of my friends meant it as a compliment, but they didn't mean to hurt my feelings. They didn't mean to. I know that. I don't blame them, but it hurt. They would come to me and be like, "Hey, Althea, Elsa looks Asian when she doesn't have her makeup," and that just kind of like not set off anything, but that just made me feel kind of confused because I'm like, wait a minute, if you can take off her makeup, she's Asian, like Japanese. They were going Japanese wise, and that's supposed to be a good thing. I didn't really think that. At first I was like, that's a little weird, and I didn't say anything. Obviously, I just said, okay, sure, okay, that's nice. I didn't know what to say, and then I noticed, and then of course I feel like, funny enough, they fixed it for Frozen 2 because of the North Ultra, aka Eskimos. So that makes sense now, I guess. I guess they got away with that. But then I noticed with Elsa, so many racism towards Asians. Not so many, but just some things because here that was the beginning. then I would see her. This is the second part actually. It's not really that thick, but with the second part, people with Slytherin, they would always put her House of Slytherin when she doesn't fit that category at all. Everywhere you go on like I would go Google and see her matched with like fan photos and all that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's because she has pointy eyes. That's literally it. She's more of a Ravenclaw when you really think about it. But the thing is, I realized people solely put it because of her powers, but it's not even her. Because she looks like how they would categorize anyone, like in the old Disney films, as a villain in the bad, negative way. But they don't mean to be. They mean it in an edgier way, but it's not healthy. That's not good. That's very hurtful. And they're taking it with a snake, as Asians has been called snake people and rats. And they don't mean that, and they don't even know that. Society has literally taught them that without them knowing it, and I know that. So I know people coming up to me doing this or saying it blatantly online or saying the thing. They're not doing it to be racist. I know that. They really genuinely love it. And I can't talk about it because I know I'll get hate. I know I'll get, you're wrong. I am not a racist. I'm like, I know you're not a racist. I know you're not. I'm just saying this is something I've noticed. And I just want to talk about it. And I went to my mom first about it because I know she's very enlightened. Sometimes she's a little close-minded, but she's mostly enlightened. And she was like, I don't know, this is a big deal. And again, I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. You're way above my time. Like, you probably don't really see what I'm talking about anyway. So then I go to my friend who is hugely into the Asian culture, and she's black. And so I go to her when I need stuff like this, and I need a perspective because she knows more than me. So I go to her and said, "Hey, am I losing it?" And I was talking to her as we were going to the light show, like at those Christmas show things with lights. We were just walking. I was like, "Hey, am I losing it?" And she got angry. Not angry. She was like, "No, you're not losing it. That's actually there. I see what you're talking about." And she's like, "That's an underhanded slap, Sophia." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And I kind of felt relief. Because I was like, am I losing it? Am I finding racism where it isn't? Even though I feel like I wasn't? You don't want to be that person?
Well, again, it's that
fear.
Well, like I said, there's the flip side of being, I'll use the word that I hate, and I hated it when people even started using it at first. I knew it was going to become an issue. Woke.
Oh.
Hashtag woke. Again, some people started using it for a positive thing, but I could definitely tell as soon as people started using it for certain things, I was like, this is going to become a negative thing very quickly. Oh, and a lot of social media is to blame for that.
Yeah.
But there's the negative side because of our natural selfish nature, and us, again, if we don't temper with compassion and understanding, the negative side of being woke and waking up to things and calling things on the carpet. There is a difference between actual racism and things that are embedded in our society, in our culture, that the current generations did not write in to the culture. They are just the result of the people that, those kinds of comments and those kinds of things and those kinds of assumptions and whatever came from, they were racist. It came from a racist place. But now those things are just so embedded in the culture and so normal, reactions, comments, assumptions of people based off of look and those kinds of things. It's normal.
Right.
And you cannot fault someone who that's literally what they were raised in and whatever, when it's something as small as that.
Right.
That's where it is. There is a line. When it's just something small like that, and they truly have no clue. They have no clue. They have no clue that what they just said or what they did is harmful or culturally, a little insensitive or something like that, or it might be based in something that was culturally insensitive, but they're not doing it in a way that is or is meant to be. That is not racism. And that's where this current generation and some people in my generation screw up. That is not racism. You are shaming people and harming people for the sake of shaming and harming them because you want control and power over them. Because you like calling people out and making them sad and making them hate themselves in that moment and think, oh my God, am I racist? No, honey, you're not. If you do not go out of your way every day to make conscious decisions, conscious comments, conscious dialogue to hurt someone of a different race other than yours, don't care what the color is and don't care what color you are. That's another issue of the woke culture right now.
Yeah.
Racism is any indifference or hate or mistreatment of any race by any race, period.
Right.
You can be any color and be racist towards another. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. And that's another issue with the woke, whatever, people calling out racism. It does not belong to one color.
I know.
It just doesn't. But there's that line. That's the line between, this is cultural norm that we do need to start educating. We need to start conversations and dialogue. Yes, because our goal is to
be able to talk about it.
Pull those norms out of culture so they don't exist anymore. And the only way to do that is have soft conversations about it. You can't have hard, angry conversations about that with people. It is not their fault that 3 generations ago, people treated that as normal in an angry, racist way. And so their children grew up seeing that and thinking that was normal. Their grandchildren absolutely have no idea that that's not normal. You know, shame on the generation directly after for just following suit. They're just as much to blame because they did grow up in a society where they saw both sides. Wow, my parents are really horrible towards those people over here, but these people that I know aren't, and they don't have a problem with that color person. But they chose to go ahead and assign with this side, their parents' side, the racist side. So then when they had children, their children don't know these neighbors, won't know these neighbors, will not see this side ever, because they're only going to be in a family with grandparents that are racist, parents that are racist, who probably moved them into a neighborhood with people that are racist. Boom, that grandchild is not at fault at all. Until they get to a place in their life in a society where they are around people who think differently and then are given the choice and the example of, oh, that's not normal. Then it's up to them to decide, you know, whatever. But until that moment, if it ever happens, sorry, can't fault them. Can't fault them. It's like...
Because, yeah, they didn't ask to be born in there.
Exactly. Just like you cannot fault, again, another issue I have with this woke, you know, calling racism out culture.
Blaming white people for being in a happy family?
No.
Oh.
A 25-year-old, even a 30 to 40-year-old white person.
Okay.
Right now, living now, is not at fault for black slavery.
Exactly.
They were not alive then, so it was not within their power to do anything about it or change or decide whether it was right or wrong. It had already happened and is already passed. This current generation, the generations that are alive right now, did not have slaves. We cannot continue to fault current generations for things that happened multiple generations past just because it's their bloodline.
Exactly.
Because if we're going to get that into your bloodline did this to my bloodline.
Guess what? We all did that. All our bloodlines enslaved each other.
Exactly. Black people in Africa enslaved black people in Africa. Egyptians enslaved everybody.
Everybody.
Middle Eastern people enslaved everybody. Middle Eastern people. Asian people enslaved Asian people. So there's Asian hate against Asian.
That's what I find ironic.
White against, like, there's no
concubines.
There is no race existing on Earth that has not at one point enslaved another race or their own. There's not a single one. There might be one Native American tribe, because most of the time your indigenous cultures, might not have had as much of that. So there might be, a Native American tribe that has no history of that in their lifetime. But that's about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everyone. But even that tribe at some point was at war with another tribe and killed another tribe.
Right.
It happens. It happened. A current Native American person of that tribe is not responsible for that atrocity.
Exactly.
Why do we keep holding each generation responsible for things that they had no say in and no part in?
Right.
Instead, it should be discussions now about, let's make sure that we never let that happen again. Let's learn. You learn from me, I learn from you, so that we never do that again, that what our ancestors had to go through. Let's have compassion so that we move forward instead of constantly just looking back. Our society loves to look back. And sadly, people who are waking up to that stuff that's the part of societal norms that they're holding on to and that they haven't woken up from yet.
Right.
The looking back. They're still looking back and blaming current people for what happened back then.
Instead of looking towards ourselves to
And
build a
forward.
better.
Yes. Someone who is truly awake will not look back. They will look at now and how far we've come, and then they will just look forward and go, okay, that's nice, but what are we doing to move forward? No, that's nice, that already happened, but what are we doing to, no, that's great, but what are we doing to move forward?
Exactly.
That's what real woke people do and should do and will do. And until we start instilling that in these generations that are kind of waking up and coming into their own and trying to break away from societal norms and limitations, until we do that, we're going to create more generations of issues. And the current generation right now has a lot of issues because they're not awake in compassion, because their parents didn't instill compassion in them. They only instilled fight the society, wake up, which is great, but you got to temper it.
Right.
So we have a generation right now that's wildly awake, and that's just as dangerous.
Right.
Because
they're
that's
not
just
maturing.
as harmful. It's just as harmful.
Right.
Because they're going to grow up angry.
That's what
They
I'm worried
already
about. Right. That's what I'm worried about with some of my nieces. One of my nieces, her mother, I was so mad at her mother. Her mother is instilling atheism in them. They're like, you can't do religion. I'm like, wait a minute. That has to be their choice. If they want to be atheist, that's their choice, but it has to be their choice.
Yes.
And I'm so mad about that. So here's the thing: when I was talking to her, every time, I don't see her that often, but whenever, and someone else, all the nieces, I go up to them and I'm like, hey, what's going on in your life? Do you have any questions? And sometimes an issue will come up, and I was like, yes, here we go. And the last one I was talking about was about how, last one I can remember was about gender norms in the nursing area. And I remember she got angry. She's like, wait a minute, that's not right. And yes, that's not right. But I remember trying, I don't know if I succeeded if I tried. I was like, yes, but it's okay to be angry, but that's why we need to just talk. We need to say, hey, no. And I was just like, what would Andrew say? What would Andrew say in my head? I was like, what would he say? And I don't know if I succeeded. I can tell, but she's pretty chill too. She's like, okay, that's cool. And then she'll just go on and be a kid and just wait to see how that seed grows. But I'm like, what would Andrew say? I'm trying. But a lot of the parents are your generation or older a little, and they are angry. Most of them. They are angry, they're very entitled, and I'm just like, oh, someone's got to help these kids. And it's just like, and not that I won't say who, but she's very open-minded, she's very lovely, she's a good person, you know who I'm talking about, but she's so sheltery. She wants to keep her baby, and I'm like, that's great, I get it, but at the same time, you need to give your child more freedom and leverage. And I tried to give her a little freedom and leverage. She kind of had a little meltdown almost. I was like, okay, you know what? If you don't want that, that's fine. Because of course, consent, and you gotta let them know. Like, if you're not ready, that's fine. I just want to make sure you know you have that choice.
Right.
And I had that conversation with her, because if you are and you want to try something that's obviously not dangerous, you let me know, because you have that right. And she's like, okay. And she went on her merry way. And I was like, okay. It terrifies me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I feel like a skippy record whenever I talk about my parents when we were growing up, but I really kind of. No one ever gets it right. No parents get it perfectly right, because no one is perfect, and there's no such thing as perfection anyway.
Obviously.
But I'm not gonna lie. My parents did it right. They did. They did it right.
They did.
Right and wrong, as they instilled right and wrong in us. Right and wrong had nothing to do with anything other than anything that harms you or harms someone else. That was right and wrong. So if you can filter through a decision you're going to make through those two things, is it going to harm me or is it going to harm someone else? Then you're fine. Because, I mean, honestly, if you just filter all of your choices through those two things, that's right and wrong. If it's going to harm you or harm someone else.
Right.
You know, I'm going to slap my sister. Well, that's obviously harming her. So that's wrong.
And harming you in the long run, you get grounded.
Right. I'm going to jam this pen into my throat. Well, that's going to harm me. So that's wrong. You know, I'm going to put my hand on this burning hot stove. Well, that's going to harm me. So that's wrong. So I'm not going to do that. Those were our right and wrong lessons. That was it. That was it. It boiled down to that. It had nothing to do with you're naughty, you're bad. It was, no. Did you make a right or wrong decision? Well, we knew what right and wrong was. It wasn't this laundry list of things like religion tells you or society tells you. It comes down to, are you going to harm yourself or are you going to harm someone else? If not, then it wasn't, you just made a choice. Whatever. It's all good. And then, you know, we grew up, obviously, bio dad was a pastor, so we grew up in church, but our parents were always good at telling us, especially once we were of the age that they knew we had the intelligence to understand. We go to church as a family because this is your parents' faith. This is our faith. And I love that they always phrase it that way. And you get to decide if you believe this.
Right.
And if you don't, that's okay. We'll have discussions. You can talk to us about whatever you want about the Bible, God, Jesus, whatever it is. And in the meantime, if you don't believe it, you know, we're still going to go to church as a family until you're of the age where we're okay with you being home and not going to church. And then you'll have that choice. And you get to not go to church.
Right.
But until then, you're going to go with us because the whole family's there and we don't want to leave you home.
Right.
We loved that and respected that. And then it was the discussion of, if you find at 9, 10, 11 years old that you don't buy into any of this and believe it, that's fine. You'll come to church with us, sit in the pew, and draw.
Right.
You don't have to pay attention to a thing. You don't have to listen. You don't have to take part in anything. You don't have to do children's church, youth group. All of that is your choice.
I always hated children's church and youth group. Mostly because I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to socialize, I guess. But yeah, my mom, I remember, I was like, Mom, I don't want to go to church. And my mom was like, you don't have to. I remember oh my gosh, the relief. And I know as a kid, I didn't have the intelligence to do this, but I just knew I believed. I just didn't want to go to church. And my dad, of course, he was of the wider faith. You know, he was like, you have to go to church. And my mom, thank God, said that. She's like, no, she does not. And he was, I remember he was stunned. I think my siblings were a little angry because they're like, we go to church, what's wrong with you? Yeah. And I think they thought I was going to become an atheist, but what's so funny now is I'm the only Christian. Well, the rest was atheist. I think it's hilarious. Not all of them, but most of them. And I'm just like, I think it's hilarious because, again, I think I was given that choice to grow and figure out for myself.
Right. You were allowed to just figure it out. We were encouraged to, especially by Mom, we were encouraged to study out our faith. Don't just read the Bible and take it as truth.
Right.
Study it. Go study stuff. Read books. We would go to, back when this store still existed, the Bible Book Center.
Oh, yeah.
And if there was a book that Micah thought looked interesting, that talked about theology, or talked about this, or talked about this, if there was one that I thought looked interesting, they would buy it for us, for like birthday or Christmas or whatever, if we had a little extra money that weekend. And we could read the book and we could study whatever. I would go to the library and I was obsessed with religions and mythologies and histories of other cultures. So every week that we went to the library, Mom would let me rent out whatever book from those places and eras that I wanted, regardless of whether those faiths and religions didn't line up with her and Bob's religions. It didn't matter. She was like, read it. Read it. And if you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Once you finish the book, tell me about it. Tell me about what you read. Tell me about what you like about that culture and that religion. And slowly but surely, especially a teenager, I started adopting aspects of different faiths and belief systems as far as like core things that they believed about humanity and society that really shaped who I am today and the very open person that I am today, because I realized, these things are similar to what Christ talked about. And since we grew up Christian, I realized very young, why are we worried about the rest of this Bible when we're Christians, not Biblians,
right?
Not Godians? Right. We're Christians. So our whole faith is supposed to be just based off of Christ's teachings and how he retaught what is important to this religion and this faith base.
Right.
It's why I'm not Jewish. I didn't grow up Jewish because we assigned to Christ. The Jews did not. Right. So they continue teaching in the old ways. Good for them.
Good for them.
I grew up Christian, and it always blew my mind. Why do we not only talk about Christ and what Christ did and what Christ said? Right. And so I very quickly, very young, did away with the rest of the Bible and didn't care about it, didn't really study much of it. And people would say all kinds of stuff. And, I started going to youth groups a little later, at like 15. And I couldn't get into the discussions with them because they'd be talking about Moses and Joseph and this and that and that. And I'd be like,
oh my gosh, there are paper thin conversations.
I'm like, why are we not talking about Christ? Are we not Christians?
Oh, yeah.
The whole purpose of this is we should be studying this. Why aren't we talking about this? Why aren't we talking about what's going on in the world today? And what would Christ's view of that be? Let's go back to his words and figure out, okay, what should our reaction to this be? When they would talk about issues of state, the country, laws, Republicans, Democrats, blah, 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 this and women's rights and gay things and da, 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 da. And I would go, why are you going to Ephesians 4:25 or whatever you're talking about in this moment to figure out what you should believe about this instead of going to what Christ talked about with this? And last I checked, Christ never talked about gay people.
Right.
Because Christ didn't give a shit.
He didn't give a shit.
Christ talked about, how about we just love everyone? Right. How about you love your neighbor as yourself? Well, that lesson alone, we could coast off of for the rest of time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it means two things.
Compassion.
Christ said, love yourself, which the church does not push a lot these days. It's all about condemnation and you're doing this wrong and you're born sinful and you're not. Christ was like, how about you love yourself and love your neighbor as yourself? Meaning put your neighbor on the same level you put yourself. You need to put yourself on a high level.
Oh, yeah.
And love yourself, have compassion for yourself every day, but also love your neighbor in the same way. That's what Christ said. Absolutely. And if we looked through that lens, again, how much would be fixed? How much of Christianity would be fixed?
Right.
If that was the focus from day one. My parents gave me the freedom and gave Micah and Megan the freedom to find that out, seek that out, and if we saw that as truth, do away with everything else. And it never changed anything. We constantly have people tell our parents that there's just something different about your kids. Your kids are so kind. Your kids are so polite. They're so nice. They're so whatever. What did you do? What did you do differently? Like, did you discipline a lot? Did you blah, 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 blah?
I hate those ones that discipline a lot. You're supposed to teach love, respect, compassion.
Yeah.
That's really it.
And again, the right and wrong. And the right and wrong should boil down to, does it hurt you? Does it hurt someone else? Boom, done.
Done. Oh man,
Done. Because,
I-
hello, stealing from someone, that's hurting them.
Yeah.
Hello, that's hurting their life because you're taking something from them that they worked hard for, they bought from their own money. So boom, that falls on the right and wrong.
Absolutely.
You know? But, and my parents would always be like, we just raised them. We just raised them to be kind. We tried to build a house that had love in it
Openness.
first, compassion in it first, respect, and that was it. Everything else kind of fell in line with that.
That's
And
why I love. Sorry, go back to the thing. That's why I love Brother Bear so much. I hold it in dearly, and I love the Eskimos. I love the culture. I love the paintings. Oh, Disney, you're so underrated with that film. It's too good. It should be up there with Lilo and Stitch
Oh, it's
because it's literally spoke like spelled out for us. Love, the bear of love, and
But again, think about the era that came out in.
I know.
That was during still my generation, and we were still just waking up as a whole, as a generation. But again, not all of us. It was just a portion of us. And so the portion of us that were awake by that time love that film. We're the ones who hold on to that film. We're the ones who still hold on to Pocahontas.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
the ones who still talk about Lilo and Stitch all the time. We're the ones who still talk about Hunchback of Notre Dame. All of these films that were brilliant, stunning
And Atlantis.
for what they talked about, the cultures they brought in, yes. The different ethnicities, the different indigenous, and now, because now, and we've talked about this before, this current generation talks about all the time, you know, Disney is so whitewashed and there are no blah, 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 blahs, and there are no indigenous, you know, princesses that look like me and characters that look like me. And people in my generation are going, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lilo and Stitch, Brother Bear, Pocahontas, let me keep going with the ones that came out in the 90s and early thousands that y'all don't remember because you were tiny,
Right.
or
Didn't care.
that's the generation that ignored them.
Right.
And so you didn't have those in your household. We did.
I mean, look at the Emperor's New Groove. Like
Yes.
Pacha. That's why Pacha's such a great character.
Yes. There were a lot of different cultures being represented during that era.
Oh yeah.
But
That's why a lot of people like Kronk. He's so respectful and sweet and
yes,
kind.
but you've got this woke culture that is just zeroing in on what is wrong and not also giving power to what is good and what is right that's happening in culture. That era of Disney did a lot of great stuff.
Oh yeah.
Great stuff.
Meet the Robinsons
Great
was so
films. Great films. Films that talked about great stuff, but also represented great cultures. Pocahontas was heavy.
good. Oh yeah.
Brother Bear is heavy.
It shocks me to this day. Every time I
Hunchback
watch
of Notre
Pocahontas-
Dame.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about heavy. Let's talk about the annihilation of an entire culture and race. And they didn't hold back on that. That was powerful. That was powerful. And then talking about the clergy being at fault, being the ones in power and being corrupt. This corrupt white man in power. But we're not talking about that film and how powerful that film is. And that Disney did talk about racism and the issues and the historical truth of that. And then on top of it, you get the beautiful story about people who are physical handicapped or born with deformities or whatever, and how horrible he was treated.
Oh yeah.
There are so many lessons
Where?
to be learned in that film. But we're not talking about that one. We're just going to talk about that we're done with the Cinderellas and the Snow Whites and blah, blah.
We've
That
al-
was
we've
that
long
era.
already been
We've been long gone with that.
Yeah.
Long gone.
I'm gone.
The reason those and then we're like, well, those characters aren't represented anymore because your generation forgot them and let them go. Your generation is the reason those films are forgotten and were let go. Because your generation then focused on Frozen, then focused on Rapunzel, which are the white princesses.
Right.
You are part of the problem.
Yeah.
And then you're complaining about the problem that you helped create.
Although to be fair, Tangled is a good show, but I get what you mean.
Well, I'm not saying they're not good.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying the white princesses that came after this awakening era are the ones that you decided to focus on. and not the ones from the Awakened era. But now 10 years down the road, you're looking back and going, how did that get forgotten? How did you all forget that? You forgot it, Susan.
Yes.
You forgot it.
You forgot it.
You ignored it.
I remember my Karen's sister, Anyway, I remember we were talking and I said, oh yeah, Frozen's not that great of a movie. It's great that people like it and it's nice that it introduced Norwegian culture and all that. That's great. But it's not that great. And she just kind of looked at me so confused. I think that surprised me. She was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, Frozen, it's not that really good with character development. I mean, Anna's great, sure. But they didn't really do that greatness. They literally had to do a whole second film. And even then, they kind of cheated. Right. And she just kind of looked at him like, and I think she was just like, as a parent, you tend to forget that children films aren't going to be inherently, or have to be inherently stupid or simplified. Children are brilliant.
Right.
They are. And I think she just kind of looked at me like, no. And I was like, and thank God I just had that mindset to go, okay, it's fine. You don't have to agree. And then I just walked away. But I guess because she is so unfashionably brilliant in her own way, she is. She's a Karen, but she is brilliant. She is brilliant. I won't say she isn't. She is. And I guess I wasn't expecting her to not realize that. But it's fine.
Right. Well, and then you get on the groups that, excuse me, put the anger towards Disney itself as a conglomerate, as a company for them also leaving those princesses behind. But you also have to remember it's a business, it's a company, it's a multi-billion-dollar, if not trillion-dollar by this point, company. They're going to put the money where society is putting the attention.
Right.
Because when Pocahontas first came out, it did get a ton of attention. Dolls up the wazoo, toys up the wazoo, because society was loving it. Loved the music. It was beautiful. Loving the story. As soon as the next movie came along,
Lion King,
it was forgotten. So obviously, Disney's going to stop putting money into that film and that franchise. They're going to put it in the one that's getting the attention now.
like Elsa.
And then once that movie is passed, boom, we're 2-3 movies past. Yeah, they're not putting any money in that princess anymore or that movie anymore. No. Why the princesses like Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty have lasted this long? Because no matter what film came out after them, people still put emphasis on those movies.
And they had
still
time.
Love those princesses. Still love those films. Still love the toys. They kept buying the toys, so Disney's going to keep putting the toys in there.
Yeah, but they also had time, to be fair. They had more time for people to process and love them, whilst the Disney Renaissance didn't, or some of them didn't have as much time to process and love them. So, like you said.
Right. It's what does society hold on to? That's what businesses are going to put the money towards.
Right.
Period. That's why Disney doesn't have, a Pocahontas palace at Disney and whatever, because society forgot her and didn't really care that much anymore. So Disney's not going to put money into it. They're going to only put money where they can make more money. And you can't fault them for that because it's business. It's how it's done.
So Susan, if you want change, maybe you want to add a little more emphasis on your children with this princess then?
Be the change.
Be the change.
If you want the change to happen in society, be it.
Right.
Be it. Right. Bring her back. Bring those princesses back. Bring those stories back. Start having those birthday parties. Start contacting princess companies and going, hey, do you have a Mulan? Hey, do you have a Pocahontas? And when they say, no, we don't. Okay, could you possibly hire one for this weekend for me? Those companies will. They do it all the time.
Okay.
If they don't have a princess in stock, so to speak, they'll hire out for a 1 gig thing because they want to make the money.
They want to make the money.
They're not going to say no. They want to make the money. If more people started doing that, those companies would go, we need a Pocahontas. We need an on-call Pocahontas because we're getting a lot of Pocahontas parties. The more those happen, the more that those parents and kids post that on social media. Pocahontas is now getting attention. More princess companies are going to start doing it. Well, more cruise lines are going to start grabbing a Pocahontas for a Disney thing because people are, all of a sudden, Pocahontas is getting attention. People are going to start doing Pocahontas makeup tutorials. Well, we all know if social media starts doing makeup tutorials and hair tutorials and blah, 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 blah tutorials, it's going to explode again.
Oh, yeah.
boom, toys are gonna start coming out again. The movie's gonna get a re-release. It's gonna get a remaster.
Something,
It's
yes.
gonna get a something. She's gonna start showing up. You have to be the change that eventually will cause the avalanche
Yes.
and bring something back. Bring
yes.
attention to something else. The other reason that generation and the current one is not wanting to bring back certain characters like that is because they're also throwing out the words that I hate called cultural appropriation.
Oh, I hate that. I hate how they're spamming Pocahontas because like, oh, John Smith and that was. I mean, it never said it was a documentary. It's just a film, a fairy tale. Grow up.
Because again, just like there's a fine line between racism and things that are so culturally embedded that the person is not making racist choices to be racist.
Right.
It's just an underlying thing that exists that we need to work harder. It's harder to undo that stuff. This is easier because it just takes compassion, conversations, work, and legislation, honestly, to get rid of racism.
Right.
Over here, the underlying stuff, the stuff that's embedded under all these layers, that's harder.
Because you have to nitpick at yourself.
Right. It's the same thing with cultural appropriation. There is blatant cultural appropriation, and then there is cultural appreciation. It is not wrong. My favorite thing, because again, as an Indigenous person, I'm connected to a lot of Indigenous people on TikTok and Instagram and that kind of stuff. People who literally, still live in those cultures and still, still keep up with old traditions. I love going on to their TikTok videos when someone is screaming cultural appropriation over here. They'll do a stitch to that video on TikTok and go, hi, actually Indigenous over here, like
really
full-blooded.
and grown and raised.
And I think that's beautiful what they're doing because they're appreciating my culture.
Exactly.
If you're not doing it in a way that is, number one, disrespectful, obviously, that's your first sign.
Right.
Not disrespectful.
Right.
Or in a way that is stereotyping and stereotyping harmfully, or is just blatantly uneducated. I was just watching a video, someone from the Cherokee Nation just did a great educational video on what the Cherokee people actually are and how they behaved and the power that women have. The Cherokee Nation is women driven.
Oh yeah.
It is the women's bloodline actually that decides if you are Cherokee or not. You might have a Cherokee father, doesn't mean you're Cherokee.
Oh,
You have to have a Cherokee mother,
wow.
and then you are Cherokee. So that's how deep women are and powerful in that role. But they talked about the difference between traditional clothing for the Cherokee tribe and other tribes. They talk about the headdresses and what most Americans assume is the traditional Cherokee headdress is not. It actually belongs to this tribe and this tribe. What we wore was this. What our ancestors wore was this, and this is what it looked like. So it was a great educational thing. They didn't call anyone out. They didn't call any kind of cultural appropriation. They just said, we identify this is not your fault that this education is wrong.
Right.
This happened generations ago,
Right.
that something was stereotyped. So we're moving forward now with compassion and understanding to educate and correct that you were just taught wrong. Not your fault. We're not blaming you. We're not angry. We just want you
Corrected
to
it
kind of
now.
know the truth.
Right, here it is.
That's it. Here it is.
Here it is.
So now if someone wants to, represent Cherokee garb, now they can do it correctly. And those people of that nation will be like, yes, that's beautiful, thank you. Because you had to educate yourself in order to wear that and wear it traditionally and wear it correctly.
Right. Right.
We appropriate everything as a society. Everything. I mean,
I just got a Hindu the other day. It's an AMV. It's just an AMV. Anyway, it's an AMV on Sama from Flash Bowler. He's Indian. India wasn't even baselined until 1947. Before that, it was Brit Raj. Before that, sometime maybe, I can't tell. I don't have all the info, but basically, it was Hindustan. And it's and the thing is, geography has changed various of times.
Yes.
So and anyway, I just did Arabian Nights, and the thing is, it's an AMV. It doesn't matter. But either way, it's like it's still technically content. And I got 2 commenters saying he's not. I'm like, he's Indian, and I'm just. I finally just snapped, and I just had to put it on, even though it was in the description. I think I have to check now. But even if it's not, I just put it on the pin. I just said, listen, India, but like I was like, and the thing is, I put it there just as an information, and. Anyway, the Hindu person, it was so funny. They're like, I only know this because they're like, oh my gosh, you're wrong, it's Indian. And I'm like, well, no, this is what it is. And then they were like, well, I'm not offended, but it's okay, I'm not offended. I'm just like, oh, okay. And then he's like, well, he's Hindu. And I'm like, oh, they're going religion. But then I was like, why are they going religion when the comment was just on geography based? And then I was like, either they kind of skipped ahead, because I do that sometimes, because my brain skips ahead and not clarify. But then other times they switch because they want to fight.
Right. If you prove them wrong on one thing, they'll switch to the next thing and go, well, it's also this, or you have this issue and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, all right, done. I'm already done with the conversation.
Right. I already gave you what the information is.
You're not a person who's seeking more awakeness and trying to make the world better. Mm-hmm. You're using your wokeness, which I use as a negative thing. Yeah. You're either awake or you're woke. Woke is negative. You're using your wokeness as a weapon.
Right.
You're using it as, well, I know all this knowledge and you don't because you're uneducated and stupid and blah, blah, blah. Truly educated people don't use that kind of language.
Right.
When someone is truly educated and loves education, they seek to educate others. Not put them down.
Right.
Not call them dumb and call them stupid and uneducated and da-da-da, and well, you're this and you failed on this and this was incorrect and that was incorrect and da-da-da-da-da-da. Like you said, Pocahontas, we also have to have those moments where we step back and we go, oh yeah, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a creative,
liberty
type moment.
And they never said they were taking historical thing. Right. They never said, they just said it's inspired.
Based off or inspired by.
Yes. Also, by the way, the commenter, leave it in their comment.
Good.
Because I think they realized, oh crap, I lost.
Right. Because the other, again, the reverse side of the woke culture and the wokeness is then you get a show like Bridgerton, which did insanely well.
Yes.
And again, we've talked about before, I love what it did.
Absolutely. But.
Which was made very, far more diverse casting than shows like that have been and traditionally are, and that's why it gained so much fame, and that's awesome, and I love it for that, and I have nothing negative to say about it for that.
I'm just so mad that they did not cast a Native American lady for the lead or something, because ever since you said that, I was like, dang it!
But the woke culture looks at that and goes, yes, we love that, we support Bridgerton, it's awesome, it's blah, 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 and I go, whoa. So you're going to bash Pocahontas for being not historically fully accurate and being appropriation of blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to look at Bridgerton, which is not historically accurate in any way, shape, or form. But you're going to praise it because it's woke.
Right. The hypocrisy. I had that same conversation on Instagram one time when the Black Mermaid, it's a Black Mermaid. I'm like, how about it's a mermaid? It's a mermaid. Right. I was like, would you like Bridgerton? And because I was like, it's a fairy tale. It don't matter. It's a fairy tale. It's just a fish.
Yes.
And she was like, well, do you like Bridgerton? I'm like, yeah. Well, that's historical, but that isn't. And my brain lost 2 brain cells reading that comment. And then she called me an idiot, and then for some reason blocked me. I'm like, I wasn't even friends with her. I didn't even know that person.
Right, you're like, well, okay.
Okay, but it's like, people like that, you just kind of just gotta step back, even because you're just like stunned at the stupidity and arrogance and ignorance and uneducation. Right. But then it's just sad because you're just like, it's a loss. That person didn't get to know me or just at least try to have a conversation. Right. Because I don't blame that person. I mean, I don't know where she was coming from, but I got the feeling she was angry. She was very angry.
She's just angry. And again, Anger is justified in issues of race and issues of sexism, issues of homophobia and hate towards, any kind of people. Anger is justified, and anger is necessary because anger is powerful. Anger is the fuel that gets you to wake up. But then you have to temper it. You have to temper it. And the best temperance for anger is compassion. Always. Always. And until you do that, you're still going to do more harm than good, speaking out and trying to change the world, because you're changing it from a place of nothing but anger and not from compassion. Because compassion is neutral. Compassion is compassionate to everyone, which means both sides of the argument. It means both sides of the field. It means stop drawing lines in the sand and going you and me, you against me, me against you. It's let's be us. Let's talk about this as us.
Yes.
Until that happens, movement forward will always have small steps back that happen with it at all times.
Remember in Kanto? I remember I was talking about it in the term of theoretically, like psychology. I loved it so much. I still love it so much. And then this other girl liked it. And this my friend behind me, same girl who likes Japanese culture. She knows more of this than me. And she mentioned how Hispanics felt attacked and how I was like, and so she went on to talk about how some of it wasn't properly addressed or da-da-da. I forgot exactly the perspective she went to, but I was listening. I didn't say anything because the other person was talking to, but I was like, you're right, that is correct. And I said, because then after we dropped her off, I was dropping both of them off at home. I said, hey, listen, I get what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm looking at this perspective. You're looking at that perspective, and neither is wrong.
Right.
Both of them is correct. They don't have to be at collisions. And we had that conversation where she was like, yeah, you were looking at this, and I was looking at that, and I because I was like thinking, my brain would go while I was driving. I was like, that's right, that's brilliant. Because I had that openness.
Right. But the reality is, no movie will ever be perfect. No
Right.
movie will ever get it right, because even a cultural movie, let's take Encanto.
Right.
Okay.
It's great.
Depending on where you're from in Mexico,
Yeah.
it probably does represent you perfectly. And then you're in the neighborhood, whatever, or the town 6 miles away, and it doesn't reference you perfectly.
Right.
Because no two parts of the same culture are going to be the same.
Right.
A person from Africa. Africa's fucking huge. How many regions, how many tribes, how many different cultures, how many different aspects of African
so many.
exist there.
So many.
So if you had one person from every single area of Africa go see a film that's based in Africa, it's going to be based in one singular region about one singular kind of people.
Right.
Only that person from that region, from that area, will identify with every aspect of that film. Everyone else will have issues with it.
Right.
Everyone. We cannot keep getting tied up on, well, this part wasn't fully accurate. Maybe to you, but if you go talk to that other Latino person over here, that other Spanish person over here, that other Italian person over here, it was.
Right.
It was 100% accurate for their family. That's the issue that happens when you talk about culture in a film. It's a microcosm version of that culture.
Right.
It's not going to be, you can't do a film that is the whole culture in a whole, because
Right.
we
You
all
need-
take our own aspects of culture.
You literally need like an 11 or 20 seasons to do that.
Yes. And even then you're going to miss something.
And even then, yeah, you're gonna miss up something.
Like you just can't. We gotta stop nitpicking and just appreciate. Oh my
Right.
gosh, my culture was represented in this film. How cool is that?
Right. That's why I loved Raya so much, because for the first time, her bone structures, her facial structures, I was like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
But I never got, because again, like you just said, I didn't get to formulate with Mulan because I didn't see her in me, or I never got to because of where I lived.
Right.
And not saying I now appreciate her because I grew up, but yes, but again, like even though she may not be as in love with her as other people, that doesn't mean That doesn't take away from her.
Exactly. You don't hate her. You don't tear the film apart because it doesn't represent your aspect of the Asian area
Right.
of the world. You just go, she represents
Oh, great.
that
A
area.
community.
Yeah, a community of Asian. Good for her.
Good.
Yay.
That's what they need.
Yes. And then Raya came out and you went, oh my gosh,
Finally.
finally. I feel represented here. Now, did she fully represent you?
No.
And
She wasn't
you're-
even from my region.
Hello. And that's
She
a
wasn't even
great
from-
example of you still felt represented.
Right.
Period. You felt represented. That's a great thing.
I love Moana. She's so underrated.
Oh, same. Same.
But yeah, I'm so excited for the. Again, I'm just gonna. I call her Ethiopian, even though I have no idea what she is.
I know.
I'm
excited for
praying.
her.
I'm like, can it be Persian or Ethiopian, please?
I'm excited for her. It looks beautiful.
Oh man, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And this is one part I got a little upset when they're doing the same thing they did with Frozen when the posters came out. The joke, we know that now.
Mhm.
But they're like, oh my gosh, Elsa and Anna look so much like Rapunzel, and I'm just like every Asian looks like every other Asian. I'm sorry, it was like that concept. It was like so arrogant and so ignorant, and I'm just like, okay. And I love how anyway. But now the poster, and I get it. I get it. But again, it's her backside. But okay. But they're like, she looks just like Isabella, and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, one, animation, it's gonna be hard. You can't individualize, and
Well.
Disney has a style. And two, is that really bad? Like, why can't we have another flowy colored princess?
Right.
We need more. We don't have enough.
I know. I got on the bandwagon. Well, not the bandwagon. How do I say it? I compassionately and educationally attacked someone last night on social media
Oh,
that was talking about, this.
oh.
This character looks just like this character from blah blah blah. This artist stole, that concept and that da 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 da. And this character looks and sounds just like this. They keep casting, the same da 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 da. And I went on and educated myself about that person first. So I went on their profile and looked at what kind of videos they make, what kind of things they're into, and they love anime.
Okay,
Love anime.
great.
They talked about dozens of different animes. And I knew all the ones that they liked. So I went on. Well, I went on. My post was so short and it was so.
Savage.
Oh, it was great. I said, I find it interesting that you're complaining about another artist's work looking too much like this artist that you love and attacking them for stealing the overall look of the artwork. When I said, I want you to go to all of your favorite animes and I want you to cover the hair on all of the main characters of all the animes you love and take a snapshot of all the faces. And then I want you to put all those snapshots next to each other. And it is the same face, my friend. Because anime is a look.
Right.
It's a style. Meaning that it all looks like it belongs in the same universe because it's the same art style. This artist has the same art style as this artist that you love. So if you're going to attack them for copying this artist, you need to go and comment on all of those anime artists' work and go, you copied this person, that person copied this person, they copied you and you copied them and they copied you and they copied them and they copied blah, 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 blah. Because it all looks the same.
Right.
That's how anime works.
Right.
So I said, shut up, step back, look at your own life and the things that you love before you attack someone else for the things that they like and they love. Because you're guilty of
Doing
liking the same look to art that are done by hundreds of different artists, and you're fine with it over here. Over here, because it's a different genre, you're not.
Avatar fans, Last Airbender.
What's your excuse?
Right.
What's your excuse?
What's your excuse?
And, within 5 hours they stopped commenting. on that thread and stopped having that entire conversation.
Oh!
I was like, yeah. Because, again, what?
Right.
Really?
Really?
Really? Look at yourself. Look at your life. Look at your own situations. Look at the things that you're getting on other people for being guilty of, that you're guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
Yeah, stop.
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 I have stuff that looks like art from other people because I've been influenced by those artists.
Right.
We are the result of our influences in our life.
Nothing new under the sun.
No.
Right.
You might have a new spin on it.
Right.
That's as new as it can get.
Right.
That's as new as it can get. That you'll have a new spin on that kind of art or that kind of writing, that kind of music and composing. Go home.
Right.
If the person didn't just blatantly, they're drawing Thor and calling it Peter in their main series, and it's Thor from the comic books. Like, it's just Thor, same costume, same color palette, same look, same art style, same blah, 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 blah. That's stealing.
That's stealing, yeah.
But to have a character that's buff and has long blonde hair, that's not Thor.
Right.
You can go, oh my god, that's Thor. Okay, and then every guy in the world that looks like that is Thor, and they should be sued for trying to copy Thor with their body.
Right. But,
It's body type. It's a hair color and a hair length.
Right.
Like, get over yourself.
Get over yourself.
Get over yourself. Stupid.
Right. There was this girl, random, but there was this girl I was working at the store I was working at, and this girl, I don't know how I knew. Maybe I have a natural Wi-Fi thing. But I looked at her and I'm like, is that your natural hair? And her mother was like, yes, because it was beautifully curled, like not curly, but curly, like as in what girls would pay money to get curled for. I was like, you're so lucky, the money you're going to save with prom and everything. And it broke my heart. She was like, well, because her mother was like, well, oh, she wants to straighten it because all her friends say she should straighten it. I didn't say this because I didn't want to be rude, but I wanted to just say, they're just doing what society has taught them what is deemed as beautiful. They're not thinking about what's beautiful. They're just thinking of what they say, oh, that Instagram model says beautiful, so I have to straighten my hair. You should straighten your hair. They're not saying it to be malicious. They're saying it because they're ignorantly, they're programmed, and they're just young. They're just kids. They're just high schoolers or middle schoolers. I don't know. I'm not. So I just said, well, we all say dumb stuff until we're like maybe 18. I just said that. But the thing is, I just said, no, honey, you are gorgeous. That is what everyone would wish they could have. Literally, she has what because all the beautiful people in the world that we praise online have something like she had. That's different. Yeah. That's gorgeous. And I don't know if I made a difference with her. She probably just go, oh, okay, that was something, and maybe not think about it again. But it broke my heart because she had beautiful hair. And she's a beautiful young lady. Her hair is gorgeous, and it was just like, and me and her mother were on the same page. Like you're going, you're going to grow up, and you're gonna go, wow, I was absolutely lucky. I am absolutely lucky, and you just need to ignore these people because they don't know. Right. They're just doing what society's taught them.
Right. Yup.
It broke my heart.
Again, it's those underlying things that already exist that are just inherent, sadly, in the generations that grow up because it has existed for so long. That's the stuff that's going to take time to undo, but it's going to take soft conversations to undo.
My friend who liked Mellow Pony, the one that we're not friends anymore with? It broke my heart because she was very Italian, thick, gorgeous, thick hair. And it broke my heart, and it still angers me, even though she angers me because we even not friends anymore. But I still am angry at the fact that society, that she's, and if that's her, okay, that's her. And I think that is, okay, now I respect that. But it broke my heart still that she took her thick, gorgeous locks and straightened it every day. Oh my God, every day. And heavy lipstick onto her. And it wasn't heavy, I don't think. But it was just so bright. And just bright lipstick and makeup. And she looked nice. I'm not going to say she didn't. But it felt, at least to me, And again, that's a me problem, not a her problem. That's a me problem. And the thing is, the problem I still wrestle with is, was it her?
Right.
Or was it society?
Right.
I think it was her. So that's her, and if that's her, then good for her. That's her
Yes.
right. That's her right. I'm not gonna tell her she's wrong.
Yeah.
That's not gonna. She was absolutely right. But it just worries me half the time because I don't know which it is half sometimes,
Right.
and I'm worried.
Yeah.
Because it has to be for you.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. But society is such a powerful thing. We as humans, our influence is so powerful. It's part of what makes humans important. And we are powerful. And that's downplayed a lot, especially by religion, where we're told that we're, worthless and not worth much without a deity and without a God. But then again, you go to Christ's teaching if you're Christian,
Like real
or you
Christian.
go to the Taoist faith and those kinds of things. And humans are important.
Oh yeah.
Humans are important.
Oh yeah.
Christ talked about us like we're the shit.
Yeah.
Because we are. Christ talked about the power that we have and how important we are. The power of our words, the power of our influence. That is power. We wish every day that we lived in a world of magic where we actually had the power to change things and influence things, but we don't realize we do.
Right.
We do. All you have to do is tell someone, hey, I just wanted to tell you, you're beautiful.
Right.
That was magic, because that person guaranteed is going to walk through the rest of their day feeling better. Because you had power over them in that moment and you used it for good. You used it for positive. We also have the power to walk up to someone and go, you are fucking ugly. And then walk away. You have power over them, that will affect the rest of their day.
That's why I love Cinderella, the remake, where the over narrator, she was like words are like spells.
They are like spells.
So true.
They are. And depending on how you use them, you're either a witch for good or you're a witch for wicked and evil. But it is your choice. It is your choice. Our society is where it is because far more wicked people have cast wicked spells into society. And now it's stuck. It's in the air. It's in the air. It's in the trees. It's in the ground. It's in the water. And so we have to make sure in our everyday that we cast counter spells as much as possible for ourselves and the ones we love. And they work. That's the thing. Those spells really are more powerful than wicked spells. It's just that people don't cast them enough.
Right.
Or don't cast them truly. They cast gray spells.
Right.
There's some good to it, but there's some wickedness to it too.
And then there's people who use kind words to cast bad spells.
Yes, and those are the worst of all. When it sounds like a spell for good, but it's actually a spell for wicked, ooh, those are the worst.
Oh.
Those are the worst. Those are the ones that bury the deepest. And those are the hardest ones to undo. Honestly. They're the hardest ones to undo. They take the most powerful counter spells to undo.
You know Disenchanted? One thing I loved about it, we talked about, is how Giselle was going like, no, it's not just a teenager's thing. There, and even if it was, hello, you moved a kid. You literally uprooted a child. And you're like Instagram models. We get so detached because of that. We feel dejected because of Instagram models. And then and that poor girl Morgan is living with a little Disney princess. How of course she's going to feel dejected. She just wants some normalcy. And then you move her. I would if anything, she would have acted more sane than I would have if I was in her situation. And I hate it. And then Giselle's over here like, no, something's going on. And so what I loved about, and this one gets me so mad about the movie when people complain, is in the ending, when she's like, I'm not a daughter of Angelina, and she's like, yes you are my daughter, I love you. And that's the thing, that's what I love about Enchanted and Disenchanted. It's that the one thing that transcends through both worlds, and what Disney has fucking told us for the whole duration of our lives, is love is unlimited. It doesn't care about biological whatever. Right. It doesn't care about societal norms. It don't care about shit. It only cares about love and compassion and being there for you. And that's what worked. That's what saved the day. Just outright love for a child, between a woman who walked into their lives and decided to love that child unconditionally. And I'm sorry, I get emotional, but it's just like, that's the most powerful because there's no strings attached.
Right. But
You don't need a happily ever after for that.
that's the key. It takes love that has no strings attached.
Right.
And as society, we don't teach that kind of love. Love has expectations
Right. Like.
and exceptions.
Right.
That's not love.
That's not love.
And so that's why people are sick of the whole, I'm so sick of the whole love, true love conquers all and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but the key word there is true.
True.
True love. And people automatically think true love means romantic.
No.
It's like, no, it's talking about true. If love is true, I can meet someone and within 5-10 minutes of knowing them, love them.
Right. Like show kindness. Like say you talk to them and you have a conversation and that person just got shot. You're going to, and even if you didn't know that person 2 seconds ago, you're going to care about that
It's gonna
person.
mess me up.
You're gonna try to like stop the bleeding. You're gonna call 911. You don't have to know the person to genuinely care.
Right. And that's what true love is. It's just caring with no strings attached. I love that you said no strings attached. It's the perfect thing. That's what love is. It is caring with no strings attached. And that can become stronger and take on different shades. Romantic love can be part of that. But romantic love is not necessarily true love.
Right.
Because romantic love can have expectations and strings attached.
Right.
True love can be between friends because it has no strings attached. True love can be between you and an
Siblings.
animal,
Yeah.
which is why it hurts when they die or something happens to
Oh,
them.
Pip,
Because
that
there's
hurt.
true love attached to that animal. You have no expectations or expectations on that animal. You just love them.
Right.
They don't do anything for you. It's a dog. And you go, well, yes, they do. They make me feel better. No. You feel better because they are there.
Right.
They're not actually doing anything to make your life better, other than they're just there. Because you love them from day one, that's what makes you feel better. That's that magic. We also have that ability with people. When you truly love someone, you just feel better knowing they're there.
Yeah.
I just feel better knowing that there are certain people living in Rockford who I barely get to see, but I love them so much that just the knowledge that they're still alive and exist brings joy to me every day. That's that power.
Yes.
That's that power.
Very much.
But again, society and so many layers. And
I'm
not
so
enough-
glad I recorded this conversation. My
not
God.
enough people that talk about waking up in the right ways.
Right.
Talk about, oh, good, you're starting to see things clearly. Great. Shut up. And let's think with compassion first before we speak.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh man. But
Anyway.
yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Longest tangent ever.
Yeah.
What else?
Can I put this on YouTube?
Sure.
Thank you.